What is up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again talking college football. And today we are into our first Wednesday slate. It is week 7. Conference USA gives us two awesome games to get into. Before we get started, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel, especially if you like the content. Those are two ways to help a small channel like this, and I very much do appreciate it. If you have a comment or a request for a game in a future episode, we take basically all requests for the Friday show. I throw in a couple myself, but it's all you guys. If there's something you want to hear about, let me know and I'll try to get to it. Last thing, if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right. Double header. Let's kick this off. Missouri State takes on Middle Tennessee. Missouri State, first year in the FBS. Congratulations to them. Middle Tennessee acting like maybe they should be relegated. Starting the year, Missouri State has actually looked pretty good. They played two impossible Power 4 teams in USC and SMU. Actually acquitted themselves fairly well against SMU. They only lose 28-10, and the yards per play advantage was 6.4 to 5.1. Otherwise, against other teams in the G5, they beat Marshall with a 92% post-game win expectancy. That was a close game. They won by 1. And then they lose to Western Kentucky in another tight-fought game, 27-22, with a very close yards per play. It was within a yard. Their last game was against an FCS team, Tennessee Martin. Coming off a bye this week, as is Middle Tennessee, a lot of these Conference USA teams will schedule their bye before they switch to the weekdays. Middle Tennessee, it has not been so good. They lose to FCS Austin Peay. They actually got crushed in the game, 34-14. After that, they lose to Wisconsin 42-10. They beat Nevada by 1 point. Then they lose to Marshall 42-28 and Kennesaw 24-16. Common opponents, it's Marshall. Missouri State beat them. Middle Tennessee lost to them. So we have that, at least as a commonality between these teams. As far as injuries go, Missouri State lost their quarterback in week 5. I don't know if he's going to play here, but the optics didn't look great. He was on crutches, and he had some weird kind of brace on his knee. So they have subsequently turned to a true freshman under center. More on him in a little bit. Otherwise, just Kristen Loaiza on the offensive line. He's been out. For Middle Tennessee, they don't have DB Kalen Woods or offensive lineman Akani Tuono. We'll see if either of them play. Injury reporting is not great in this conference, at least ahead of time. We're recording this a day in advance. Getting to Missouri State, we mentioned the quarterback injury, so not expected to see Jacob Clark, and he's been really good for this team, so that is definitely a loss to note. Their backup is a true freshman, Deuce Bailey. He only threw 16 passes. He did run 9 times, but the sample is going to be small no matter what. Completion percentage for him is at 41%, 3.4 yards per attempt. Didn't have any turnover-worthy plays, and it looks like his best skill might be on the ground, where he had 64 rushing yards for 7.1 yards per carry. He didn't take a single sack. And that's admirable considering this offensive line at times. They're currently allowing a 41.5% pressure rate. Some of that just playing SMU and USC. You're going to allow a lot of pressure to those teams. But overall, it looks like there is some skill players that they can rely on. The pass catchers are currently 54th in efficiency, and the run game is 100th. But if you've watched these Conference USA games for any length of time now, you might be familiar with their running back, Shamari Lawrence, who's a transfer from Florida International. He's actually not been that great, but I think that's more of a reflection of the offensive line than him. Their pass catchers, Alfred Luke, 310 yards, Jamarie Robinson's at 212, and they actually have a good pass catching back in Ramon Green. He's actually the 3rd leading receiver on the team. But it kind of comes back to this offensive line. They played some good defensive lines, especially you look at even the G5 teams. Marshall and Western Kentucky are not bad. They both had double-digit pressures in the game against Missouri State. But where they've really struggled has been in the run game. They're kind of an imbalanced unit where they're 52nd in pass blocking, 135th in run blocking. The numbers you see on the screen are an aggregation of those. So they come in 103rd in total offensive line efficiency. But they are a little better in the pass game compared to the run game, which is why Lawrence has struggled a bit. The real question is, can they move the ball against Middle Tennessee, whose defense is 92nd? They're actually somewhat decent against the run at 56th, but they've yet to play an offense ranked higher than 112th. The best offense they faced is Marshall, a game they lost. And they've allowed a lot of production to a lot of signal colors I'm not particularly excited about. Amari Odom for Kennesaw State was at 8.9 yards per attempt. Carlos Del Rio Wilson, the cast-off from Syracuse, was at 11.9. Danny O'Neal, 10.5. He was the starter for Wisconsin at the time. They've also allowed over 5 yards per carry 3 different times to Wisconsin, Nevada, and Kennesaw State. I don't think this defense is particularly good, so the only hang-up for me really is, what is the freshman quarterback going to be able to do against this unit? Which is a question for sure. On the other side, Middle Tennessee was supposed to have a good quarterback coming into the year. Vadiato was a multi-year starter. I think the infrastructure around him is just so poor, it's really affected him. His completion percentage has dropped to 58.5%, 6.1 yards per attempt, 3 big-time throws, 2 turnover-worthy plays. He's run bad on those. Somehow he has 4 interceptions and only 2 turnover-worthy plays. You get that when receivers tip passes to defenders on catchable targets. That's been a problem. He's taken 13 sacks. His pressure to sack ratio is a little high. It's up at 24%. And his receivers have also dropped 10% of his passes. Tips are included in that, which is how you get 4 interceptions on 2 turnover-worthy plays. And it's just that. The receivers, Najee Cox leads the team. He's dominated the wide receiver room. Otherwise, it's Miles Butler at 180 yards, Cameron Lacey. These are really low-level players. And the run game is not that much better. They're 88th in efficiency. It's basically just Jakyle Middlebrook. They have leaned into him a little bit more. He's up at 5.8 yards per carry, which could be an avenue for success. But this offensive line is also bad. 134th in pass blocking. That's 3rd worst. 122nd in run blocking. They have faced 2 good pass rushes and 2 bad ones. But it hasn't really mattered. Every team's been able to get pressure on them. Coming into the season, we had this projected as a bottom 4 Conference USA offensive line. And they've been injured too. They've also been rotating guys. Unable to find a starting unit, they've played 8 offensive linemen at least 100 snaps. It's just not what you want this time of year. Meanwhile, Missouri State, we projected to be middle of the pack Conference USA offensive line. They had a couple good guys like Eric Cade, Cash Hudson. Those are decent players. They're above average. Middle Tennessee State doesn't really have that. But Missouri State is also 126th in total defense. They're 132nd against the run, and their strength is in coverage. Some of that, we mentioned opponent a lot now, but even Maverick McIver was at 8.1 yards per attempt for Western Kentucky. They've allowed some production on the ground too. Marshall ran for 5.8 yards per carry, Western Kentucky 5.5. But those offenses, those are all pretty good outside of Marshall. I think this defense actually might be pretty good for a Conference USA unit, that is. We want to look at what they can do, not against P4 teams, but in comparison to their actual conference. Mitchell Toney's been very good for this team, but the rest of the defense, I think, is pretty middling overall. When you look at this mathematically, we show value on Middle Tennessee. Can we take this? I don't actually know. We have them slightly favored in this game, and that's because we took out Jacob Clark. If you put him back in, very, very clearly would be Missouri State favored. So that is a huge position in this game. What does the true freshman Missouri State quarterback give you in this contest? If it's anything close to Clark, Missouri State's going to run away with this game. If not, I think there is value on the Middle Tennessee State side. I'm just not sure I'm really ready to make that gamble considering what Middle Tennessee has put on field so far this year. If you're interested in a total, we show a little bit of value towards the under ever so slightly, but not anything we're actually going to play. We make it 48.5. We make the spread about a pick 'em in this game. Let's go to our second contest. Liberty UTEP. More household names in this one, at the very least. Liberty comes in as a 1.5-point favorite over UTEP. The total is 47.5. I already bet this. I took an over at 48.5. This was a mistake. It was hanging at 47.5 for most of the day. Saw this start to creep up. Thought there was a chance it was going to continue. Hit it. Turns out there was some buyback and it came back down. So I have a bad number. I'm not going to buy out of it. It is what it is. But we'll get to that. I guess right now we'll start with the pacing. Liberty's played faster than expected. They're 61st in pace, even though they're running the ball. There is some room for growth with that as well. And UTEP's playing at the speed of light. This is a top 10 team in terms of pass rate and pace. That hasn't changed even with some injuries to most of their good receivers. On that, their main injuries are at wide receiver. 2 of their top 3 are done for the year, Cam Thomas and Jaden Smith. They also have a couple tight ends injured, Luka Matamoros and Judah Ezinwa. They also have an offensive lineman, Jake Utley, as well as edge rusher Assad Hall out, at least presumed out. For Liberty, Ethan Vasco, I think he's going to return here. There was some practice footage. He was working with the number one center on the team, but they've also been down Trey Badowski at offensive line, Vaughn Blue at running back, Aiden Vaughn at linebacker, Amarian Williams in defensive back, and Brylan Green got hurt in their last game. I believe he was stretchered off, too. He's their best defensive back. For resumes, Liberty has not lived up to expectation. It is what it is. They lost now to Jacksonville State. They had a 45% post-game win expectancy. Lost to Bowling Green, had a 62% post-game win expectancy. Lost to James Madison. That was the game Vasco got hurt, which the game was much closer till halftime. Vasco didn't appear after halftime, so the score ends 31-13. And then they lost to Old Dominion last week with their backup quarterback, Merdinger, who's awful. Score of 21-7. Surprised it honestly wasn't worse. For UTEP, they lost to Utah State, beat an FCS school, then lose to Texas, UL Monroe, Louisiana Tech. All of those losses outside of UL Monroe were by double digits. And the big thing with them is they keep losing the turnover battle. When you go to the quarterbacks in this game, Malachi Nelson, former five-star of that fabled recruiting class with Arch Manning and all those guys that have subsequently failed. Only Dante Moore really looks good, but Malachi Nelson was a five-star. He currently has a 55% completion percentage, 6.3 yards per attempt, 8 big-time throws, 12 turnover-worthy plays, 9 interceptions. 8 of them have come in the last 3 games. He doesn't run the ball. He only has 1 yard rushing because he's taken 8 sacks. It's not all him. The wide receivers do have an 11% drop rate, which is very high. But, man, Nelson has not taken care of the ball, and we even saw Skylar Locklear appear in Week 7. That's something to watch. He's a very different quarterback. He runs a little more. But, I mean, this team is really just searching for an answer at quarterback because they keep giving the ball to the other team. And they've actually played fairly well otherwise. Even with the injuries, they have pretty decent receivers. Kenny Odom is still playing well. They're running a large rotation. Trayvon Tate's played well. The pass catchers have been solid outside of the drops. But the run game needs some work. They have turned more to Hassan Wilson at 6.6 yards per carry over the struggling Ashton Emery. Maybe that'll help them. But at the end of the day, both pass game and run game are bottom 20 in efficiency so far this year. That's isolating them and not really looking at Malachi Nelson. The offensive line's not bad. They're top 100, 99th in run blocking, 90th in pass blocking, and they've played 2 decent defensive lines. Louisiana Tech's good and Texas is Texas. Only 1 starter comes in above average still, and this unit was not expected to be good. We thought they were going to be a bottom 3 offensive line in Conference USA coming into the season, so there probably is some room for this unit to be a little bit worse. Just not very good overall. Liberty, we thought was going to be a pretty good defense, and now they have faced 2 top 50 offenses in James Madison and Old Dominion. But my goodness, this team is 121st in total defense. They're horrible against the run. They're actually good in coverage, but it doesn't matter. You've been able to just run the ball down their throat. Alonzo Barnett and Colton Joseph both were over 8.5 yards per attempt, so the good teams still can throw. But you look at yards per carry allowed, basically everyone's been above 5, including James Madison, Old Dominion, Maine, and Jacksonville State. They now have 2 of their better defensive backs injured, especially Brylan Green. That's what I'm worried about with the stretcher. So we'll see on this. Maybe UTEP can actually find avenues of success against this team. Liberty's been one of the teams that's fallen more than any other in power ratings so far early in the season. But on offense, they should get back Vasco. That is big for them. He has a 57% completion percentage, 7.9 yards per attempt, 5 big-time throws, 4 turnover-worthy plays. He runs a little bit, 2.8 yards per carry. Sack rate is pretty high for him. He's at 9 sacks on a 36% pressure rate. That's a 22.5% pressure to sack ratio, which is a little high. But Merdinger was a complete disaster when he had to play. So we need Vasco in this game. He at least can orchestrate the offense, which has good players. Their run game has been really disappointing. They've dealt with some injuries like Vaughn Blue. So Evan Dickens has led the backfield with Caden Williams playing a change of pace. Neither of them have been particularly good. But the receivers are okay. They come in 60th in total efficiency, led by Dante Lee. And then it's kind of a committee from there. They have a pretty nasty rotation, starting to get Casey Kane and Tyson Mobley more involved. Those are the bigger names. But outside of Lee, no one has more than 135 yards. The real question was the offensive line. Losing Badowski hasn't helped. So they currently rank 108th in pass blocking, 68th in run blocking. They've played some good defensive lines. James Madison's pretty good. But interior is pretty decent. The tackles have been a mess. DJ Geth didn't play the whole game last time out. Trey Badowski's been absent. So Christian Williams has had to play. He's not been good for this team. It's really just an injury thing for James Madison on the O-line. They have a ceiling. It's just hard to achieve it when some of your best players go down. UTEP's defense isn't that bad. They're top 100 in every category, 85th in total defense, 89th in run defense, and 99th in coverage. They're also pretty good at rushing the passer. They haven't played as many good offenses. 3 of them are above average. One of them is Texas. But I think you can still poke holes in this defense, allowing 9.9 yards per attempt to Aiden Armenta, the UL Monroe QB. Bryson Barnes, he was up at 8.2 yards per pass attempt. And then on the ground, UL Monroe, 6.1 yards per carry. What you can say is no one else was above 4.2. And there are a couple of good defenders for this team, especially in the secondary. Neil Campbell, Solo Barnes, and Micah Davey are all pretty decent. I think the best path is to try to run this team, which Liberty is more than happy to go out and that's their strength anyway and what they want to do. So I think they have some offensive success. And all this boils down to, for a total, we think UTEP can actually throw the ball on this Liberty defense, considering the Liberty injuries. And then we think Liberty is able to run the ball on UTEP. With pacing in your favor, an over makes sense to me. We make this above 50, which is what we played. If you're interested in a side in this game, let's see what we have here. We actually have this in favor of UTEP a little bit. It's closer to a pick 'em, but very close. Not something we want to play. Just a lot of noise with Liberty so far. But that'll do it for us today. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any feedback or suggestions, games you want to hear about, let me know. Otherwise, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time, and good luck.